All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Practical and Creative Broadband Conversations with Jennifer Ganske from the NBN and Adele Schonhardt from the Melbourne Digital Concert Hall. My name is Tia Bauman, and I'm filling in for Kevin Dupree, and I'm thrilled to be joined by Jennifer and Adele today for this conversation on harnessing the potential of broadband technologies for innovation and creative ideas. I'd like to start by warmly acknowledging the traditional owners of countries throughout Australia, including where you are today. I'm connecting from Gadigal land in the Eora Nation, and I pay my deep respect to elders past, present, and future, and extend that respect to any First Nations peoples joining us today. If you'd like, please share an acknowledgement of the country you are on with us in the chat. So currently on screen, there is a white and blue and yellow PowerPoint holding slides with text outlining our leadership tenets. And we have with us our guest speakers and Auslan interpreter. I am a woman in my late 30s. I have tan skin with clear glasses and dark hair, and I'm sporting purple eyeshadow. I'm also wearing a black t-shirt, and I'm sitting in my apartment with white walls. So welcome to Creative Connections, everyone. In a minute, I'll introduce you to our guest for today's session, Jennifer Ganske, to talk about how the arts and cultural sector might engage and use the National Broadband Network in their practice. But first, I'd like to quickly go through some of the features and housekeeping notes for today's session. Firstly, live captioning is available on Zoom. If you can't already see the captions, you can turn them on by clicking the CC button at the bottom of the Zoom window. You can also select to view the full transcript in a window on the right if you prefer. So thank you to Shavoy and Rebecca for joining us today as Auslan interpreters. There's also a chat running throughout today's session, and we invite you to encourage you to share your thoughts, ideas, and resources with each other. Francis will be looking after the chat and will share any relevant links with you. We'll also be running a Q&A with Jennifer Ganske from the NBN at the end of the session. Ian in our team will be looking after this, so if you have any questions, please add it to the Q&A section, and we'll try and answer as many as we can at the end. If we don't get to your question, you can always send us an email at leadershipprogram@australiacouncil.gov.au, and we'll get back to you. If you're having any tech issues throughout the session and something isn't working, you can raise your hand by clicking the hand button at the bottom of the Zoom window, and Francis from our team will be in touch with you to work it out. And finally, we are recording today's session. These recordings can be accessed via the Creative Connections page on the Australia Council website. So please share any of these recordings with anyone you think might be interested. Okay, so it gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest for today. Currently on screen is a PowerPoint slide to introduce our speakers. It's a blue slide with an image of Jennifer and Adele Schonhardt. Jennifer is wearing a fabulous polka dot blue dress, and Adele is wearing a red t-shirt. And they're both looking directly at the camera. So Jennifer is the National Segment Head of Arts and Tourism for the NBN. She's the current Chair of Cultural Attractions of Australia and comes from a strong global background as a producer in the creative industries. Previous to her work at the NBN, Jennifer was the Director of Marketing at Sovereign Hill Museums Association, Creative Director for the Season of the Arts in Ballarat, including delivering the Victorian Regional Tour of the Archibald Prize and Melbourne Spring Fashion Week's regional show. She's also arts consultant to regional galleries and institutions. Jennifer started her career as a journalist in London before moving to New York City to work at the Guggenheim and in television and theatre production. She is a passionate supporter of creative content and is committed to advancing the ability of artists to develop their work in regional, rural, and remote Australia. Today, Jennifer will lead a discussion with key practitioners around best practice and opportunities for the arts and cultural sector to engage and use the National Broadband Network in their practice, focusing on the Melbourne Digital Concert Hall as a case study for digital innovation during the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I'll hand over to you now, and I think you have some slides to share.
Excellent. Wonderful. First and foremost, thank you to the Australian Council for having me here today, as well as thank you to Adele, my colleague from the Melbourne Digital Concert Hall, for attending with me today. It's a great privilege for me also to acknowledge the country I'm calling in from today. I'm calling in from Wathaurong country, and I would like to pay my deep respects also to elders past, present, and emerging. I'm calling from my office today, which is surrounded by children's art behind me. You might also see the appearance of a cat across the screen. I am wearing a black and white top, and look forward to speaking with you. I might just head over to the first slide, and what I thought I'd cover off in a little bit of a background is just some NBN basics. So NBN is probably what you're all aware of the internet provider, but that is really a government business enterprise, and it was founded in 2009. And their key objectives are really about supplying access to fast broadband for the nation. The purpose is to lift digital capability. And it really is underpinned by a purpose of connecting Australia to bridge the digital divide. If we just pop over to the next slide. I've been with NBN about 4 months now. I've joined a new division that was founded at the end of last year called Regional Development and Engagement. Regional Development and Engagement was really created as the organization prepared to depart from a build organization into a run organization. And the goal was to really hone in on helping regional, remote, and rural Australians have and lift their digital capability. I'm one of 5 segment leads that was brought on as the organization identified that they really wanted to dig deep into some key components of our economy. My work with NBN features a portfolio that has arts and tourism within it. And if we head to the next slide. Some of the things that really brought NBN's attention to the arts sector and identified this as a really key area and opportunity for the organization was some of the incredible numbers that contribute to our GDP coming out of the arts. It really is a massive job creator for Australia, with over 50,000 professional artists and 600,000 employees in creative industries. But most importantly, it's really at the core of our cultural identity. 85% of Australians believe art and culture makes our life rich and meaningful. And allowing everyone to be able to share this as new digital technologies come across is at the utmost forefront of our minds. The industry is incredibly diverse, as you would all be aware. It encompasses visual arts, performance, music, gaming, fashion, architecture, so many things. And I think that there is just a really great opportunity for us to ensure that everybody has a level playing field with digital literacy, connectivity, and capability. The interesting thing in my work at NBN is really focused on the goal of revolutionizing the arts. There's this risk that we run of just digitizing existing content and putting it out into the internet and assuming that that's a thriving digital arts community. And I really want to work on that term revolutionizing when I hear content creators speak, because there are amazing things that weren't available for us to do before we had the internet. And those are the stories that I'm really interested in. If we want to jump to the next slide. Thank you. I want to explain how we're viewing this segment. I really see this as a creative ecosystem. For every artist that is creating something or content that we have, we also require an audience. And within this ecosystem, digital infrastructure, literacy, access are all equal important parts of the equation. Ensuring that there is less of a divide as we move through regional, remote, and rural Australia also remains a big focus. If we jump to the next one, I'll just walk you through the thought leadership that we at the segments team at NBN are really moving through. One is connectivity. That is absolutely at the core of everything, making sure that there's availability, accessibility, and equality to access around Australia. And then explaining what that value proposition of digital adoption is. And to be honest, I'm learning that from all of the incredible arts and artists that I have exposure to. There are things that are being taught to me and shown to me that are so incredible, but really being able to understand that you can revolutionize and create a broader audience and a broader reach by having access to the internet. Qualifying the capability skills gap and working to address that. I think this arts ecosystem is really interesting. One, especially because when we talk about many things like leisure activities and Australian content and media, we would see that our audiences are often much more mature and advanced. They're very capable in watching on their screens and they have a better understanding. When we take that into other areas of artistic practice, it can get a little more challenging, and helping highlight where you can develop your skills and move towards the technologies of the future that might expand your practice. So that for us is a really key area of thought leadership, of listening and better understanding what trends are coming, what the industry is looking for, where the key technologies are coming down the pipeline. And then if we look into enabling data-driven decisions, this is really crucial and important for segments that have a duplicity in ecosystems. It allows so much in-depth knowledge about who your audience is, as well as incredible opportunities for us when we talk about IP and various other things that you might want to protect your work, or even having a better understanding of how to put paywalls in. If we just hop over to the next slide, these are some of the major trends that we are learning about and moving through with the arts. And blockchain is one that is really emerging as a powerful player in the creative economy. With technology increasing and being used to receive and pay for content, there has been incredible growth in this area. We've seen experiments with royalty payments for music, screenworks, being able to prove authenticity of visual artworks, of fashion, and even in avoiding ticket scalping. So I think this is a really strong area of growth and really important one for the arts industry to be understanding. Augmented and virtual reality are also really interesting immersive tools that are appearing. Content is being dramatically altered by this immersive technology. According to one poll, 46% of audiences associated with virtual reality and novelty experiences said that 60% more they would attend an artistic performance because they had that sampling. Artificial and virtual reality also have the capability of providing truly transformative experiences. I'm seeing some incredible examples come out of artists creating virtual reality healing programs for people in hospitals and health. And I think this is a really emerging tool, and we've got a lot to learn and to grow with. Artificial intelligence is undoubtedly a challenging proposition for many. I think that AI in its own right has created original music, written scripts, generated art, and even created video games. However, for creative activities, there's reason for optimism, but also nervousness. And I think to listen in and better understand the conversation that's going on in the industry is really important. And again, I touch back on that data collection. Designers of software are increasingly relying on collection of personal data for business growth. Companies use data to personalize content, including advertising, and as a result, have an incentive to collect more data. It also allows us in creative industries to really deeply understand audience and understand how to expand reach and communicate with that audience for whatever that creator is hoping to achieve. NBN has had a history in the last 9 to 10 years of really trying to see some great opportunities to explore arts. One of the things is in 2016, they wanted to highlight musicians, especially in regional, remote, and rural Australia, that were working alone but together. If we pop to the next slide, there we go, excellent. They brought together an Australian group, 2 Cents, and they began collaborating on original songs from their home bases around the nation. While never meeting in person, the band was able to create original music with the help of fast broadband. 2 Cents has debuted an EP called Firefly, and that was created using the services of the NBN network. The artists and their mentors relied on video conferencing, file transferring sites, and social media to conceive and create this unique track from scratch. And just shows that, 5 years on, we now see this really embedded in the industry with a lot of the work that has come out of COVID as well. So if we can play the video.
Yes, oh my god. I was heading back to a faded black and white.
Thank you. And that really is just a sign of how something has now become embedded in our digital practice. If we pop to the next slide, I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the incredible case studies that I have been exposed to. And one of the things that we're aware as COVID-19 has really unfolded is that the arts has been hit really hard. This is an industry that has had incredible challenges, and it's been amazing for me to see some of the really strong brilliance that is coming out of organizations. One of these organizations is the Melbourne Digital Concert Hall, and my colleague Adele is here with me today from that organization. And when they were first put on NBN's radar, it was really to watch an organization as it came through and evolved. We started to watch them about 5 weeks into the first COVID lockdown, as they were taking a response to COVID-19 into a series of concerts. I'd like to introduce Adele to you now and let her explain a little bit about her role and define Melbourne Digital Concert Hall to you.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'd first like to begin by acknowledging the Wurundjeri peoples of the Kulin Nation on whose lands I'm on today, and paying my deep respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. I'd like to say a big thank you also to you, Jennifer, and to the team at NBN. We're so proud to partner with you and to share our story with you as it evolves. And a thank you to the team at Australia Council for having us today, and also for their support of the program. So I am a woman in my early 40s wearing a dark olive green dress. I have pale skin and curly hair, wearing glasses, and in the background of my living room there is a black piano and a plant. My name, as mentioned, is Adele Schonhardt. I am one half of the team behind Melbourne Digital Concert Hall, together with my co-director Chris Howlett. And it is a startup that we founded just over 5 months ago now in order to support particularly the classical music community as COVID-19 hit. And I'm pleased to be in conversation with you today, Jennifer, about how that has evolved.
Wonderful. Do you want to paint the landscape for us, Adele, a little bit about what the inspiration was when you first decided to form the concert hall?
Certainly. Chris Howlett and I have a long background working in arts administration and particularly in classical music. And we know each other through 3MBS, which is a radio station in Melbourne. And through our network of professional musician friends and colleagues, when COVID-19 hit, we started to see so many people losing work, and not just individual gigs or concerts, but entire seasons of work all of a sudden, whole orchestras having to shut down, venues closing. And we felt, because we were involved in the leadership of 3MBS particularly, that we couldn't just sit there and do nothing about this, and that we were in a position where we were perhaps uniquely placed to help some of our colleagues and friends because of the networks that we belong to. And in one particular instance, because of Chris's friendship with Tim Kelly, the CEO of a company called FiveStream, which is a national professional streaming company who have become our partners at Melbourne Digital Concert Hall. So over the course of a weekend in mid-March, we got together on the phone and said, right, what are we going to do about it? And we're fortunate to partner with some brilliant organisations, chief among them FiveStream, the Athenaeum Theatre in Collins Street in Melbourne, and also Kauai Pianos, who all just leapt to our aid and immediately saw the urgency and made their venue available to us and their facilities and equipment so that we could launch this very quickly. And the concept behind it was that it would be a ticketed streaming service where musicians would be able to come into the venue and perform a concert for free at their end, and that we would provide the platform and the payment mechanisms for them to actually earn a living through their concerts and their performances, all in a COVID-safe environment and socially distanced in small chamber groups so that it could proceed all the way through COVID-19. That's where it came from. We're fortunate to still have those partners today. Within 10 days, we were up and running, and we could never have foreseen where it would take us. We've now presented over 150 concerts. We've engaged well over 300 musicians, generated over $600,000 in income for them. And we're now expanding, or we have expanded into 5 different Australian cities and have held concerts in Berlin and London and Singapore to feature Australian musicians there. So it's been an incredible journey, really.
It really is. And I think one of the things that was really interesting to me when I first came across you guys was just that revolutionized component. You were tapping into audiences that were not compromising the existing audiences of your musicians or of the companies that they may have played with. You were sourcing and offering up access to regional, remote, and rural Australia through a medium that they had never had. And I think that for me was really that switch in my brain that said, oh, this is great. This is going to grow some legs and really move. One of the other things I was really moved by was when you and your partner, Chris, would describe to me how you had to personally take a pivot into ICT channel manager. You guys were taking phone calls from certain segments of our population that may not have had the same digital capabilities as youthful ones, and you were helping and walking them through connecting online and putting apps on their iPads. And one story I know you shared with me was that a lovely woman in her 80s from regional Australia said she hadn't turned her computer on in 3 years since her husband died. I think that pivot in your own skill set is pretty incredible. What were some of the other major digital technological challenges and situations you guys had to consider as you got rolling?
Well, first and foremost, we had to ensure that we had the highest possible quality in both video and audio for these musicians. These are professional artists. We wanted to do them justice, and we wanted to give our audience the concert experience at home, if you like. We weren't in the business of just streaming from your living room with Zoom. We've got amazing audio and video technology behind everything we do in every location, and the expertise of FiveStream to ensure that it's a really brilliant experience, both for the artists and the audience. Behind that, of course, is the need for a strong and reliable connection and the ability to connect into communities everywhere, because as you've mentioned, we've found that a good quarter of our audience are actually in regional and remote locations and can't otherwise get to a venue to see a normal concert. So indeed, you're right, this is tapping into a need that we hadn't anticipated on this scale, and it's a very exciting development, I think, for our sector. Of course, we need a secure platform as well for payments and for the streaming itself. And above all, you're right, the importance of our role as a digital enabler wasn't immediately clear to us. The fact that we would have so many wonderful conversations every week with audience members around the country, assisting them to get online and to have the best possible experience and to Chromecast to their televisions and all of those things that make it a great concert for them. So that's been brilliant and wonderful.
And walk me through that digital growth in numbers that you've seen. I mean, just how many concerts have you guys been delivering, and how rapidly has the audience grown?
Well, look, we now have close to 10,000 individual ticket buyers, many of whom have purchased multiple tickets. We actually have some die-hard fans who've come to every single performance we've put on, which is just amazing. And we're so thrilled by their support. We've put on 150 concerts now over the course of 5 months. So it's been incredibly busy for us both, and we do have those 10,000 audience members where we're starting to grow across the country now and internationally, which is exciting too. So, and a large portion of those are an older audience, so it's terrific to have them online with us.
Of course. And where do you see the Melbourne Digital Concert Hall evolving as we look to return to a new norm post-COVID?
Look, I think there are some incredibly exciting opportunities that have arisen out of this. First and foremost, we want to continue to support the sector. So we hope that we can play a key role in the national recovery process for the sector, and doing that in a number of ways. So firstly, of course, by continuing to stream concerts with no audience, but also in supporting the venues around the country as they start to reopen with a small audience, because if you have that opportunity to stream and have the small audience in the venue, then it becomes more viable for them, and also mitigates the risk of them having to close down suddenly and not be able to get that audience in, because they can still stream it to those people. We've also acquired a concert hall in a box, as we call it, which is a full set of high quality equipment that we send on the road regionally to capture music in communities that otherwise might not be able to stream their concerts. And we're now talking with ensembles right through from Hobart to Darwin, which is really exciting. We're going to be streaming from Darwin very soon. We can't wait for those performances. And I think it's time that we all as a sector learn to embrace the enormous potential behind this technology that we have. So, for example, we had an incredible world premiere here in Melbourne a few weeks ago. It was by Melbourne composer Katie Abbott, wonderful composer. She had written a work for the Flinders Quartet and narrator, and it was based on 2,000 letters that Julian Burnside had arranged to have written by ordinary Australians to asylum seekers on Nauru, to basically connect with those people who were isolated and reassure them that Australians were thinking of them. And sadly, those letters were all returned, unopened and unreceived by those recipients. And Katie Abbott wrote this brilliant work for string quartet and narrator that was unable to be premiered in Canberra at the International Music Festival, where it was intended to be premiered, but which we managed to premiere in Melbourne. And the wonderful thing about it was that it had a huge audience from around Australia and the world, but also that we were able to stream that performance to those intended recipients. Those asylum seekers are now in Preston, who were on Nauru at the time, in asylum here. They were able to watch the premiere with us, as were the writers of those letters. And it was just
incredible.
And
yeah.
Some indication of the potential of this technology, that it's not just about capturing a traditional concert experience, but thinking more broadly, well, how can we connect portions of society who otherwise might not be able to get in contact with one another? I think that's the wonderful thing about this.
If you could give some feedback as well on the performers and how their experience is, because this is a really different model for them to be playing without an audience and to a camera. Tell me some of the feedback you're hearing from them.
Some of them have found it very strange because, of course, musicians thrive on audience. They really thrive on that connection that they get in a filled concert hall, and to have nobody there apart from a couple of people streaming and organising in the background is very strange for them. So there was that odd feeling of disconnect for a lot of them to begin with. But I think what was really heartening for them afterwards was that there was always a flood of activity post-concert while they had no applause as such in the venue itself, there'd be hundreds of messages to them and Facebook posts and all sorts of things going on afterwards about how wonderful it had been and how much it had meant to those who had tuned in and watched the concert. And I think that really has been very heartening and has also helped a lot with the mental health of a lot of our musicians, because not only are they in financial difficulty in a lot of cases, but not having that next performance to work towards is very difficult to cope with when you're a professional musician. So to have that concert coming up and then to earn that income and get some feedback afterwards from audience members and be able to connect with those people who make up your audience is one of the most important things about this. And I hope that
I have one more question before we go and see if any of the viewers have any questions. What advice do you have for anyone who is a creator or an artist who might want to take a digital pivot? What inspiration would you like to impart to them?
Basically go for it. I mean, if not now, then when? I know this is a frightening time for our sector, but it's also a moment of great opportunity to rethink how we all do things. But I'd like to add to that we have achieved what we have at MDCH because we are a tool for collective impact, and we rely on the generosity of many sponsors and partner organisations. So if you can, I encourage you to get together with a community of other like-minded arts practitioners and see what you can achieve together collectively, because we are far stronger if we all work together to try to solve this wicked problem that we find ourselves facing at the moment. The other thing I'd like to say is please think very carefully about putting free content out there online. Obviously, we're not fans of that at Melbourne Digital Concert Hall. We believe there is a market online for arts work, and we believe that it's very important that we as a sector get behind that and that we recognise that that may well be an important tool for our recovery. And I want to say finally also that we should always remember that we are the creative sector. So really, we are the ones who are uniquely empowered and equipped to deal with a big challenge like this and to react creatively. And yes, we can wait for government to come and support us and fund us and rescue us. And of course, government does have a role in doing that. But there is so much that we as a sector can be doing as well to aid our own recovery. And I think that's a very exciting opportunity for us all and something we should never forget.
Yeah, can I sneak one more question in?
Sure.
So just one of the things I was thinking about when you say that, and one of the tools that I've watched you use is when we talked about trends and some of those key ones that we're watching, you guys survey. And I know you just mentioned that you believe there's an audience out there, and that validation has to be data driven. How are you guys utilizing and working through data?
Well, we issue regular surveys to our ticket base, and we've had some really fascinating findings, many hundreds of qualitative responses from people saying, look, please keep this going. I'm stuck in remote New South Wales and I can now see musicians who I love and who I could never get to see. Please keep this going because my daughter plays in an orchestra in Melbourne and I'm in Queensland, and this way I can see her perform up close. Or I'm 91 and I can't get out anymore, or I'm vision impaired, so I can't go to the concerts I used to love. There are so many reasons why people are tuning in and why we believe that audience is there. And also, of course, we are collecting the quantitative data as well on where people are located and how they are viewing and what the experience is like for them. So we are very fortunate in this is one massive design thinking process, if you like. We're experimenting as we go, trying out new things and seeing what impact they have on the data so that we can really build something that's going to benefit everybody.
Yeah, no, well, I certainly think that is why NBN wanted to really highlight the case study of MDCH, because it is that design thinking in motion, and it really does open up a lot of opportunity for people to be inspired by a digital transformation. I might invite Thea back and just see if there's any other questions that are coming in from any viewers.
We do have some questions, yes, coming through. We have a question from David Woods. Can you provide a breakdown of the technology involved, please? The microphones, tripods and cameras, etc.
I'm afraid that's not my area of expertise. If David wants to send us an email, we'd be happy to help afterwards, but that's very much Five Streams domain. So I'd rather leave it to them to explain that one.
Okay, no worries. We'll organise that hookup between you two. And this is a question from Jenny Rissenbeek. How do artists connect with the program? Also, what is the range of ticks prices achieved, and is it usually one performance screening?
Yes, it is. So the way we operate is that we tend to generally have 2 performances in one evening. Each one of them is 1 hour long, and we have a bit of a gap in between to allow the other group of musicians to come in. Ticket prices typically are $24 for a ticket. And we're very transparent with that model in that it's $20 that goes directly to the artists who are performing, and $4 covers the credit card fees and helps us with our operating costs. That would be our typical price point. We have trialled longer performances on a Saturday night at $34. They've also been very successful, but we try to keep the pricing as accessible as we possibly can so that everyone can afford to take part in MDCH. And as for the question about how to get in touch with us, if you visit our website, melbournedigitalconcerthall.com, there's an email address there that you're welcome to contact us on, and we'd be very happy to talk with you.
Great. We have a question from Adrian Collette. How did people most hear about the Melbourne Digital Concert Hall, which encouraged engagement?
How did they most hear about it? Well, it's primarily through organic reach because we don't yet have much of a budget for marketing. And we're hoping that our Australia Council application that we just put in may assist us with that in the near future. We were fortunate, of course, to tap into the networks that we possess through 3MBS Radio and through my former role at Music Aviva Australia, which is a chamber music organisation, and various other places. Chris Howlett is a well-known producer who has a list of his own from the many festivals that he's run very successfully. So we cobbled all of those networks and lists together, and that's how we began. And that's really still our strongest point. We send out an EDM to that list every week, and those people have been with us and supported us right from the outset. Aside from that, we have Facebook, and we have a little bit of social media marketing and the occasional Limelight or Cut Common EDM. But at this point, part of our expansion plan is indeed to have a more targeted marketing strategy and a bit of a marketing budget to grow the platform.
Great. Yeah, we do have another question from our teams, actually. Jennifer, we're just wondering potentially how you might see the application of the NBN across other art forms. Like, how could it be potentially used across other mediums or art forms?
Yeah, I think in these early stages right now of post-COVID, we tend to have the line of sight really focused on how to keep audiences coming, whether you are a visual artist or a performer or a fashion designer. So really working closely with other industries to understand how to shift to digital broadcasting. Again, even fashion shows and how we can move runway shows without live audiences, how you can help get virtual reality experiences within galleries. And again, I come back to that notion of not cannibalizing what you already do, but really revolutionizing and enhancing. We're trying to find really great ways to highlight things where a gallery is maybe showing you a tour that's something you wouldn't be able to see if you could go and see the visual arts normally. So it would be something through the stores or something that has a really unique experience. And we're also really interested right now in watching that exploration of immersive experiences where you co-create. That's one I also think that is really evolving. And I think we're going to find some new art forms come out of that, of collaboration that maybe in person wouldn't have happened so easily, where you might be able to connect someone internationally here, and some of the really interesting things that join out of there. And Thea, I might actually mention one of your first works that had something to do with the NBN, which was really phenomenal for me to listen to.
Yeah, it was a project that was part of a curated and commissioned set of projects that was called The Portal. But my project was called Metaverse Makeovers, and it was connecting the fingers of girls in Darwin and in Sydney via a hologram manicure. And when you scanned your nails with my apps, then augmented reality holograms would fly out, and that would fly to a public screen in both locations. So it was connecting hands together across vast distances through an augmented reality portal, so to speak. But that was supported by the NBN, exploring some really early applications of what the NBN could do to connect to vastly distant locations with augmented reality technology. So, I mean, I personally am very interested in where the direction is and the trends that are being spotted with VR and AR, and what kinds of applications can be designed with immersive experiences, and also how that can connect to other art forms like theatre or live performance or music.
Yeah, and it's really one of those things that, again, I think why case studies are so important is they get you thinking about what's possible. I know there's been some incredible stuff done with exploratory theater and VR and teaching children in those spaces. And I'm just getting my head around them and learning about them. So if anybody has case studies, please send them forward. Anything we can learn more about and highlight to help keep inspiration going. The IP conversation is also really interesting to us. I know we do a fair amount of work and a lot of work together on how we help protect artworks. And I know there's quite a movement right now in blockchain and understanding that. And I wish I was the technical person that could explain that to you, but I'm not quite sure the way it works. But it's also really exciting to be able to think that our artwork will have longevity in secondary art markets and be able to protect the integrity of our creators.
Great. We're actually running out of time, but I'd just like to thank everybody for coming together and connecting to discuss the NBN. I'd like to thank Laura, Francis, and Ian, the Auslan interpreters at Sweeney Interpreting, captioning at Red Bee Media, and our comms team. We do have some last minute questions, but if we could save that to the NBN session that's taking place next week. They're a bit more technically driven, so we'll have some technical team members that can field those questions. So please put those questions in the chat and we'll collate them for our next session, which will take place on Wednesday, 16th. And we'll drill down further into how artists and organizations can embed digital strategies and capabilities into their practice. So we look forward to seeing you again soon, and thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Jennifer and Adele, for an insightful session. And I encourage everyone to check out Council's website for past episodes that are archived. Please also take the time to fill out the survey that we'll place in this chat. Francis, if you could do that. So again, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you again on the 16th. Stay safe and goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.